Chairman Latta has just arrived. And so without any further ado, I'm going to call Chairman Bob Latta, a great friend who is now the chairman of the subcommittee on energy, on the Energy and Commerce Committee. And we'll have a good conversation about the intersection of digital infrastructure and energy infrastructure. Congressman Latta.
Morning.
Good morning. Please have a seat.
Did you give a tour of the Capitol last?
I did give a tour of the Capitol last night.
Finish up. I walked by at your group, so you were doing one of your late ones. Like
It was a good late night, but we had a good crowd, and I try to tell a different story every time. It's not always easy.
Well, as long as they all work together. Thank you.
Well, tell me just real quickly, and the audience, your new role and responsibility as chairman of the Energy Subcommittee. You have been the chairman on the Broadband and Telecommunications Subcommittee, now moving over to energy. What are your priorities and what are the new responsibilities?
Well, the Energy and Commerce Committee, if you're not familiar with our committee, it's not saying anything about anybody else's committee. It's the greatest committee in Congress. And the reason I say that is that we all say it because we have the broadest jurisdiction. So you're thinking about energy, healthcare, telecommunications. I used to also chair the Digital Commerce and Consumer Protection, which is now back to trade, commerce, and manufacturing. But when you look at all of our subcommittees, we have 6 in total, that we touch everything. And so having been the communications and technology chair in the last Congress, moving over to energy, I say this is that one of the things when you serve on our committee, you're looking over the horizon 5 to 10 years. And that's why I say that because, again, we don't want to put anything out there, roadblocks that are going to hurt the innovators, the entrepreneurs out there from getting things done. And so that means making sure we get the right laws in place, to making sure then the right regulations to follow so we can do it. But really, when I look at our main goal on the Energy Subcommittee, it's the number one thing. And this is my 10th term in Congress. And I don't think there's been ever been a better time in my 10 terms now to say that this is the best Congress for energy in this country, because everybody's talking about it and we've got to have it. So it's just making sure that we meet our energy goals is going to be number one.
Just to add a little bit to what the chairman said, Energy and Commerce is the only committee that has the jurisdiction both over broadband networks and the energy networks and the energy infrastructure. And in the age of AI, our member companies that have a lot of the hyperscale and data centers are the intersection of where the energy networks, grid, transmission, all of the energy supply meet the data center. And on the other side, our fiber networks are building the large dark fiber routes that connect in and then transport the data and the applications that come from the data centers. So what we have heard from our member companies is the tremendous demand and the tremendous need for more energy at the data center. Talk a little bit about the ways that the committee could approach permitting reform to try to speed an all of the above energy strategy to supply the AI data centers and AI demand that we have today.
Well, you're absolutely right, because when you look at the data centers across the country, my district alone, there are 2 going in right now. And the number one question is, where are you going to get the power from and how's that going to work? So when we look back several years ago, our electricity usage is getting almost static. We weren't really seeing much of a bump going up. But just in the last couple of years, with the data centers coming online, everything's really going up. And not only are they going up, but it's going up exponentially. This year we're looking at maybe about a 4.5 to 6%, maybe 8% more usage. And then it just keeps going up after that every year. So where's the power going to come from? How are we going to get it there? You're absolutely correct. Permitting is one of the top things we have to be considering in committee. We can't have a lag time to get this done. Again, serving on all six of our subcommittees, chairing three now, one of the things I've never heard from anybody in any sector is just one thing, that they're against regulations. But everybody's always said the same thing. I don't care if it's from the Internet of Things, to energy, to telecommunications, to broadband deployment. Just give us regulations we can live with. And that's absolutely essential out there. It's so we can't be having, if you go to communist China, they just do it. And so we don't want to fall behind. We want to be the leader when you're talking about on the AI side. So for us, we have to make sure that we get the permitting done this Congress and get it done right, so that we don't have situations where somebody can come at the 12th hour and file a lawsuit and say, we're going to start this whole thing over again. I think you're going to have to look at having some shot clocks out there to make sure we can get it done. But permitting is going to be absolutely essential, because again, when I look across the country with all of the AI and what we're going to have, the question as to where that base load is going to come from has really radically changed. So if you're thinking about pipeline for getting natural gas in, because we're looking at probably 7 to 8 years before we get really online with the small modular reactors. When you talk to Democrats in the committee now, they've been on for several Congresses, they're all saying the same thing. We're looking at nuclear now because we've got to have the power. And when you think about that, 3 Mile Island is thinking about coming back online, Palisades up in Michigan. So every place that everybody's thinking, how can we get more power out there? And it's got to be a base load. So, intermittent is great, but you've got to have that base load to run 24 hours a day.
Yesterday we met, and we've been meeting with your committee staff, and they're tremendous.
That's the brains of the operation.
Yeah, I went from staffer to member and lost all my power and influence. But we had a great conversation yesterday, and what INCOMPAS has done over the last year is form an AI competition center. And we went out and we recruited intentionally all of the critical infrastructure to do something a little bit different, and that is to bring in energy companies. So Williams Company, which is a natural gas pipeline, X Energy, which is a new small modular nuclear reactor company, combined with our data centers, combined with our fiber. And we met with key staff from the Speaker's office, the minority leader, the Energy and Commerce Committee on both sides of the aisle. And I was struck by the agreement that we need an all of the above energy, renewable energy, natural gas, nuclear, all of the above, and that we need to speed the deployment of both our fiber networks and our energy transmission grid pipelines infrastructure to meet this moment. And do you think we have a chance to really get a major permitting reform bill through this Congress?
Well, I really do, because again, as I mentioned a little earlier, this is the first Congress in 10 for me that I really see there's light at the end of this tunnel. And it's important because, again, we need more energy. We also have to make sure that when we're out there, how are we going to get it from point A to point B? If it's on the electrical side, the grid needs modernized. And you think about on the transmission, the distribution, a couple of years ago, we had a situation with the EPA almost making it impossible to make a transformer in this country. And so you've got to have, from the transmission on the electrical side, you've got to have the pipeline on the natural gas side, and then keep working. Because again, some of the companies out there are today saying, well, what we're thinking about, how about if we can have the power behind the meter, have it right there on site? So everybody's trying to figure out what they can do, but that power usage is so great. And that all the above strategy we talked about in 2008 as Republicans at that time was, we have to have everything in the mix out there, but we always said the same thing. But the federal government should be picking the winners and losers out there, because once the government starts picking, we start losing. So whatever the best is to get things done is how we have to get that done today.
And we're doing the same thing on all of the above on the broadband infrastructure side. You were the subcommittee chair as the BEAD legislation went through on the infrastructure side, and now states are looking, and the new administration is looking at reforming BEAD so that we can speed its deployment, get shovels in the ground, and so that this race to build energy and the race to build fiber connectivity to our data centers to meet the AI demand. Any thoughts on that side of how we can remove the barriers to permitting, not only on the energy side, but also on the fiber broadband side.
Well, and in the last Congress, we had multiple bills to try to get that done because we want to move that energy. We've got to move the on the BEAD side. We're going to change the name. One of the things we have in committee right now. But one of the things about when you look at on BEAD, one of the questions was how fast we can get it out there. Well, if you talk to the FCC, you're not really seeing any shovels in the ground out there, and they want to see things getting done. And, one of the great things about our jobs as a member of Congress, we're invited to go out and see things. And I remember being one of my two-year colleges, they were trying to get things going to help train people to be able to deploy. But in talking with one of the small companies in the area, this is the things they don't think about in Washington. Two things came up. Number one, okay, you put these time limits out there. Number one, do you even have the people to get it deployed? And do you have the people trained to do it? And they said, oh, by the way, the other thing that I don't think they thought about, and I said, what's that? He said, it's going to take us 18 months to 24 months just to get a truck with a bucket on it to get it out there. So, and so I remember talking with NTIA. I said, just out of curiosity, I don't want to put you on the spot here. Did anybody think about those 2 points that they think about in the rural world? Kind of no. So that's that's part of the problem. So we've got to get it deployed, and so we want to make sure because again we have about 8 million households out there across the country that don't have it, and so it's important to get it because again, I've got communities in my district that if they don't have right now broadband, if they have a small company, and I always hate to put people on the spot. Just out of curiosity, when was the last time somebody in this room used the Yellow Pages in the last 5 years? Oh, there's your answer. So, okay, one. Okay, thank you very much. 1 and 5. Okay, one's the 5 year. But the thing about this, if you're a small company in Northwest rural Ohio, and you don't have broadband connectivity, how does the rest of the world find you? And so this is what happens then. It's a cascading effect that the small company has to make a decision. Well, we're going to have to close up shop or we're going to move, which then if they move, it hurts that small community, taking those jobs with them. And all of a sudden they have that rural problem out there that happens. So making sure that we have the broadband for everybody in this country. So, during COVID, when kids went home with laptops, great idea, but they had one problem. They had no connectivity. So the parents that now drive their kids to the local McDonald's or the library for a Wi-Fi hotspot just so they can do their homework. So from telehealth, I mean, I can go down the entire list why it's so important that we get that done and get it done today.
Your district is one of the leading manufacturing districts in the country. And what people don't realize is that the data center energy fiber networks could be on the forefront of the onshoring, reshoring of American advanced manufacturing. In places like your district, rural Ohio, my home state of Mississippi, we have a chance to really see advanced manufacturing come, but it all goes back to, do we have the fiber networks, the data centers, and the electricity and energy supply? Our member companies, just like on the energy side, we built an all of the above stack. We have fiber companies, 5G companies, satellite low Earth orbit companies, fixed wireless companies. So we now have all of the above. And we really want to see the fast deployment, the fast availability of the funding, the barriers on the permitting to be streamlined with shot clocks, dates certain. We have legislation actually in your committee about how do we cross the railroads.
Well, that's a real problem. Oh boy! In fact, I was just talking with a company the other day about that.
Yes, and what we're seeing is up to 18 months sometimes just to get the access across the railroad
and the cost,
and then the cost. I don't want to call it railroad robbery, but sometimes that is the case. But we have just a number of things that are before your committee. You've always been a great friend and champion and ally, and I'm excited about your role on energy because it really is the new intersection. And for the first time, we think, what you had mentioned behind the meter, we think that the competition that has come to the fiber and broadband industry and the tech industry there's also going to be a simultaneous energy revolution and a new competition coming into those markets. And just, I don't know if you have any thoughts on this new disruption coming because of AI.
Well, you know, I have a very unique district because, again, I have 86,000 manufacturing jobs. I have the largest farm income producing district in the state of Ohio. I've got the precision agriculture legislation was the last farm bill we got. We're working on satellite on the ag side this time. But when I look from, going from very rural to the Cleveland suburbs is my district, about 220 miles as the crow flies diagonally across to Ohio, what you're seeing out there is that years ago you go through a factory and you would say, how many widgets did you make today? And they say, well, after we get done, we'll pull out some records and we'll check. Everybody's walking around with iPads today, and everybody knows they can tell you right to the second what's going on there to make sure that the production is flowing. So, to be able to manufacture today, the competition is so great and every penny counts. And so what you're seeing, especially on the AI, is how fast you can also bring a product to market. And when I go into businesses and factories, and they no longer take months or a day or weeks or whatever. They can work on something in overnight and have it out there. So they're working on things constantly to make a much better product. Because again, just that bottom line now is how they compete. And then one of the things I say, this country compete against anybody in the world. And that's why one of the things seeing a lot more being, our shortening our supply chain after COVID. That's so essential now because so many companies are saying, you know what, we got to do that. And so it's also how much more can they produce here? But again, how can you do it in an economical fashion to make sure that they're competitive? Because again, I always say this, when it comes to energy, we're fortunate in this country now. Not only can we outproduce Russia or Saudi Arabia in oil production on any given day, from being when we were told we had no natural gas in this country to being the number one natural gas produced in the world. So you talk to the Europeans, especially the Eastern and Central, they want to get our LNG because, or just before Christmas, what did the Russians do? They shut off the Austrians. So they want to have a constant supply of energy that comes from us. So the United States can lead this world across all the fronts because the world looks to us to lead.
One last thought. In this age of disruption and somewhat unpredictability, you are a second generation member of Congress. Your father was in Congress. You've been how many years now? How many terms?
Well, this is number 10, which it seems like it was just yesterday.
So a voice of continuity and of the institution from the heartland. And so I think it's a very valuable voice in today's world to give the continuity, the institutional, but also the overarching view that whether it is your farmer, your manufacturer, the connectivity of all the critical infrastructure that makes it all work now, that you're in a place to really lead this new policy to support this revolutionary technology, both on the AI side and on the energy side. And I'm glad that you're there.
Well, greatly appreciate it. And, I appreciate all the work that you do because it ties everything together and brings people in all the different businesses and technologies. Because again, serving on the Energy and Commerce Committee, I always tell people this, if you think we come up with all these ideas on our own, that's not it. We need to have you here walking the halls. We need to have you contacting your members of Congress, not only here in Washington, but at home. Because again, the only way I can do my job is to be out. And I tell you, when I'm out, I get to see the greatest entrepreneurs in the world in my district and across now, and then in Ohio and across this country. Always, there's a lot of times I always ask people, I say, how did you ever come up with this? I wouldn't have thought of this in a million years. But, that's what Americans do. I always say if we again, give them the right laws and the right regulations and turn them loose. And that's what we've done in this country. And just watching it, in my heading for 20 years, in my 10th term now in Congress, it's one of those things you look out and you just see the great things that we've accomplished when the rest of the world says, how'd you do it?
Well, we look forward to working with you. We will be walking the halls later this week as we do our lobby day, and I look forward to the good work that you're going to do and that we can do with you.
Well, thank you very much.